They say when platformers were spun into 3D, the world changed. An extra Z was added to the XY axis, and you can now jump on platforms, but in 3D. It was basically like real life.
A flurry of 3D platformers came, some great, some average, and some a little bit unacceptable. But many stood out as incredible classics that we felt should be celebrated.
The jump into a three-dimensional space brought more possibilities for the platforming genre. The worlds were able to become more widespread, and it just felt cool to do little double jumps in a forward direction.
Which is why both of us, Countdown Bleck and MasterJakeStudios, have come forth to give you our top 10 3D platformers.
There isn't much criteria here, to be honest. Just a case of which platformer provides the richest experience, the best controls, stages, gameplay gimmicks, and atmosphere.
So, in other words, there's quite a lot of criteria.
Well, I suppose.
3D platformers and N64 era rareware were a great combination. This won't be their last mention on this list, we assure you. But to begin, let's try their final creation, and by far the weirdest.
Conkers Bad Fur Day is a tough cookie to categorize. On one hand, it's dressed up as, and was originally intended to be, a kid's game before some bright sparks got drunk and wandered the game off into the surreal world of Nazi teddy bears, opera-singing turd monsters, and oddly sexualized mechanical cogs. Kind of like our protagonist, actually.
Despite its change of direction, the game still carries the same classic rare charm and polish, which brings everything together to put it far above just an unconnected string of bizarre ideas. The gameplay is definitely structured around the humour, which only allows it to take it to even more interesting and varied directions, as all the levels are built around tapping into different facets of pop media, jumping through periods like Spring Mario in a rubber factory. Starring Horror World, World War II, and cavemen with hoverboards, it's a timeless experience, pun very much intended.
Then, to crank the insane up to 10, we have the boss battles. Everyone knows about the Great Mighty Pooh, which, out of context, sounds slightly concerning. But how about a Hey Monster turned a giant killing machine Terminator parody, or a bear plushie / small squirrel exorcist girl combo riding a spider mech? Most of the time it's just about as funny as, what on earth am I looking at? Who was this made for? And why is it so much fun?
The way it fuses elements of its platformers, shooters, and racing games with the motifs of a kid's game and something much more adult makes it feel like a celebration of all things rare, which is a nice thing to have just before their downfall. It's certainly an odd one, but a nice, more out-there start to the list.
Fan-f***ing-tastic.
Here's the first of many games on this list to feature a duo taking the spotlight. Indeed, it's Jak and Daxter! The original Jak and Daxter introduced the platforming style, Jak and Daxter 2 showed more development in both protagonists, and then came Jak 3. Don't worry, they took the name Daxter out of the title, but he's still in the game, and as knee-slappingly funny as ever.
Yep, all throughout you're still getting that meaty gameplay, combining standard elements of platforming, exploration, gun combat, and driving, all very well executed.
Because, I mean, there's no point having all of this stuff if, well, it's all slopped together kinda carelessly.
Thankfully, it isn't. It's knitted together with love and passion, kissed into every stitch.
Well, you make the game sound a little more delicate than it actually is. Jak 3 is full of gritty moments and dark story events featuring a king and the creators of the universe. We're being vague to avoid spoilers, of course.
But even if the story is as engaging and as shocking as ever, it's the gameplay that really matters, and Jak 3 brought a more expansive weapon system, the introduction of a light Jak transformation, and off-road vehicle driving, all the way out in the desert. Nice.
Plus, Jak 3 doesn't have the water slums, which is a hell of a bonus. For a PS2 game in its time, Jak 3 operates so smoothly it's actually scary. Like, the technical aspects are nailed so well, lots of varied gameplay and plenty of weaponry and unlockables to bathe in, all the way from Spargus to the Wasteland. And the humour, oh yes, the humour.
And destroys all shadows!
Excuse me, Count Vulgar.
It's Jeff.
Miras Age is easily the most realistic game on this list, although given the genre and its often whimsical contributions, that's not exactly saying much. It sees you controlling Faith, a free-running parkour expert who zips around zany stages defying the government, which is, of course, super evil. Basically, taking leaps of faith. Ha. Ha. Ha.
In between writing episodes of Family Guy, you funny fucker.
The story is hardly the most original setup, but the parkour gameplay is, and controls, extremely well.
Though the graphics don't really vary throughout with a colour palette whiter than Trump's inauguration crowd, this game looks gorgeous in action, and it's really hard to tire of something so silky smooth and sensual. It blurs with the gameplay and makes the game feel alive. Still alive.
Then throw in, as the cherry on top to this beautiful cake, one of the most blissfully uplifting soundtracks, and you have an experience more euphoric than the time I crammed 3 whom's into an essay sentence. It's the kind of sublime, dreamlike gameplay that makes you forget all the glaring faults, like how you can pretty much finish the whole game in 2 or 3 sittings.
Or that there are quite good reasons this is really the only big first-person platformer released. How can you see where you're going and judge jump timings when you can never see both your feet and the next platform on the same screen? Perhaps
lacking in mirrors, but doubling down on the edge, this game provides the pure escapist joy of running away from your problems, and for that, we love it. Back in the early days of the PlayStation's first sight, there was the little Bandicoot who could. The Bandicoot in blue shorts who spins around on Insanity Beach. The first game acts as an introduction to it all, and played a major role in bringing the A to B platforming style into the 3D world, you know? And the second game did this, but even better, with a save system that didn't make me want to drown in a vat of porridge.
Granted, the series still continued after the third one, but Crash Bandicoot 3 brought a creative and innovative jibe, which captured the hearts of many fans as well as their wallets.
The game follows a time travel theme, which calls for a lot of levels based on medieval times, ancient Egypt, and even back to when dinosaurs were once the prime ministers of the world, and yet are still more civilized than most of them today. And that's saying a lot. One of the dinosaurs chases you throughout the entire stage.
The range of themes really show off Naughty Dog's love for making the world as crazy as Crash himself. He spins boxes, jumps over pits, and grows invincible with the use of a magic mask. Heck, said mask could even be the most powerful mask in gaming.
Bullshit.
What? It could just as well be the best?
Bullshit.
What is then?
Boy.
But to be fair, Aku's a pretty sick mask. The third game doesn't just rely on platforming though, in fact it breaks into water skiing, plane flying, motorcycling, scuba diving, and even riding a tiger across the Great Wall of China.
For all its simple charm, Crash Bandicoot 3 is constantly creative, providing a time throwback to many different places all around the world, but doesn't lose the fun joy of cracking open crates and collecting Wumpa Fruit as you burst into an evil doctor's lab to kick his ass into the central heating system.
Which, and I don't know if you know this, hurts quite a lot.
While the Sonic community can rarely come to any conclusions on any levels of quality for even the shittiest of games, there's one for which there exists even more controversy. The best game in the franchise, but also, if going by fans, the worst game in the franchise, the most overrated, the most underrated, the last good Sonic game, the first bad Sonic game, and the most influential piece of media of all time.
It's got problems, sure. It's pretty glitchy in places, some of the levels and bosses are unanimously agreed as being not good, and the voice acting far too often dips below the meme-worthingly bad levels.
Don't you know it's dangerous here? I know, but I'm here to save my hero, Sonic!
But it's fun. It's really fun. Something about nostalgia, something about quality, something about its sweet soundtrack. This is definitely a guilty pleasure for me, but it's always a blast to play through. It's the only Sonic game that can fuse speed with actual interactivity achieved throughout, with mostly excellent level design.
Adventure 1 was a pretty decent starting point, but its sequel refines it nicely, removing the tedious overworlds and the unwanted gameplay styles of Tails, Amy, and Big, leaving just the 3 far more enjoyable levels of speed, shooting, and treasure hunting.
The 3 playstyles are split between light and dark stories, allowing you to play as the villains for the first time, and incorporating one of the most unintentionally hilarious stories of any game ever.
The game trying to be funny with cliché cartoon humor always falls flat, but seeing a giant anthropomorphic black hedgehog brood about his feelings with this horrendous lip-syncing, but played completely straight, is utterly priceless.
Ow! The edge! This edge is really sharp. I am now cutting myself with the edge.
Sonic Adventure 2 is a strange blend of so bad it's good, and so good it's also good. The characters, writing, voices, and especially audio mixing cannot be taken seriously, but the controls, levels, and 3 unique but all entertaining types of gameplay make a title that would already be fun by its own merits, which is only made sweeter by all the immature charms of the awfulness.
And while perhaps not quite the blue hedgehog Citizen Kane the fans far too frequently lauded as, it's still really fun, stupidly fun, and a cheesy if ultimately very satisfying experience all in all.
Banjo-Kazooie is like the quintessential typical platformer. Truly one of the finest examples of the standard explore the main overworld and collect things in the classically themed levels to explore the overworld further and defeat the final boss collection of 3D platformers.
But don't let its lack of originality and concept fool you. Banjo-Kazooie is a game dripping with charm, and if you look deep into its ideas, there are actually loads of gems of creativity to be found, like flippin' everywhere. Possibly the greatest show of that 90s Rareware character and sense of fun, despite always being a little bit too silly.
Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is character design.
The fairy tale world and unique sense of humour provide a wonderful atmosphere matching with the gloriously catchy soundtrack and silly plot of the evil witch Gruntilda kidnapping Banjo's sister to steal her beauty. Makes an experience more akin to a collection of virtual playgrounds than a real game.
But that's not to say there isn't content. This one practically defined the Rareware collectathon kind of game, and there is plenty-a-thon to be collecting, each level being densely packed. It's so dense! With goodies and a variety of fun tasks needing to be fulfilled to obtain them.
From the bizarre minigames to the Mumbo transformation missions, you're sure to have a bearific time in the world of Banjo-Kazooie, with barely a dull moment within. And there's bears.
But despite his being the titular character, Kazooie deserves the respect. Her brand of dry British humour clashes perfectly with the cliché kidsy cast, spewing out some cracking one-liners and banter. From questioning the health of a dehydrated tree's testicles, to always calling bottles Goggle Boy.
Banjo-Kazooie is hardly too complex or technical a game, but it's the care and attention put into each level, song and jiggy piece that has made it a relevant cult classic nearly 20 years on.
Makes me kind of shed a tear looking back on it.
So before Yooka-Laylee swaggers into the limelight and cuts in all the money, you can check out the second greatest rare 3D platformer to date. This is one title we couldn't bear to make the list without.
Okay, that's too many puns.
How dare you?
Get out.
I love Donkey Kong 64. So much. Maybe too much, actually. Because it takes the idea of the obstacle-based 2D platformers where you collect bananas and wreck crocs with your somersaults, and takes it into the 3D world. Except this time it doesn't have a linear A to B sort of level design. The levels are actually so much more open, which totally worked. And you know what? I love it.
The game's levels all travel through your standard jungle japes, but then has fun with twisting ideas like a disheveled toy factory and deep oceanic lighthouse into much darker and more harrowing stages. Some moments just give you the shivers.
Get out!
Apart from moments where it makes you crap your pants from fear, this game also makes you piss your pants from laughter, unless you've got a kidney stone, in which case you'll be pissing rocks. Speaking of rock, the 5 Kongs which you can play as all have their own instruments which can perform music so powerfully it makes your enemies drop dead in front of you. A bit like Creed, except in their case everyone drops dead.
Along with instruments, they do have actual weaponry. This game has it all, one would say. Potions that give you special abilities, they're here too. And it'll be super helpful when it comes to the crazy obstacles this game tries to put you through, as well as the challenging boss fights. Such as a mad Jack-in-the-Box that once scared children by imitating Donald Duck while rocking a hairstyle as scruffy as Donald Trump's.
The bosses are massive too. In fact, everything in this game is massive. It used to scare me a little bit as a kid, just so much, it just feels like something might pop out around the corner, you know? The levels, the bosses, the amount of collectibles, the secrets. This game was so huge, Rareware actually needed to hand out expansion packs with every copy. There's probably a good Expand Dong reference in there somewhere.
And with more style and grace than with all their other platforming victories, Rareware shows us they've still got their mojo with Donkey Kong 64, making it fun to hop, skip and somersault all around the land. The human brain is a dark and terrifying place, but in Psychonauts it's actually pretty groovy. Explore vast and endlessly creative levels inside the minds of the colourful cast of characters as you train through making it fun to hop, skip and psychic ninja spy in one of the most original games of the last 15 years.
Psychonauts comes from the mind of Tim Schafer, which thankfully isn't a level in the game. I feel it's a little too complex for even the most masochistic of ROM hackers.
While mechanically it's not setting any worlds on fire, it's the design of each environment and character that makes this one so enjoyable. The attention to detail in each aspect and the compelling nature of exploring psychological quirks and traits, and in a fashion only really video games could, makes it an utter joy to play through. 3D platformers as a genre are great for their ability to explore concepts without constraint, and Psychonauts is one of the best games out there for the simple wonder of diving into wacky and masterfully put together worlds.
We don't even want to give any more of this game away, so we won't, because part of the charm is how many surprises there are around every corner, and how much magical music there is to see and do and explore in every corner of the overworld in each zone of the stages. You can play it on the PlayStation 2, PlayStation 4, Xbox or Steam, and with the long-awaited sequel just around the corner, there's no better time to try it.
In short, Psychonauts, Psycho ought to be Psycho bought.
How about you Psycho don't?
A series with a middle-sized mechanic and a much smaller-sized robot started off as a great platformer/action shooter, then as sequels were birthed, the very third one was highly considered to be the peak in the series, like the peak in a meringue, and like a meringue, Ratchet Clank 3 is exceptional.
A very odd title. In fact, a lot of the titles of games in this series seem to have some sort of innuendo. Going Commando, Up Your Arsenal, Size Matters, Quest for Booty, and Full Frontal Assault. The thing about the third game is that it does everything that the first game did well, but even better. Everything's crisper, from the platforming to the music to the weaponry, especially the weaponry.
This game brings an even fuller and richer range of weapons to the squad, ranging from the Flux Rifle, to the Rhinocerator, to the Infecto Bomb. These sound like innuendo too.
As well as flinging missiles at a robotic Britney Spears with your super hip rifle, this game does progress its genre. It still is a platforming game, but the style does start to gravitate towards an action shooter. However, you'll still enjoy its smoothly animated controls as you hop around the stages. That double jump is so satisfying, I swear.
There's so much joy in cracking open crates to gain nuts and bolts, rather than fruit, which was in Crash Bandicoot previously. So if you prefer gadgets over selling fruit, then this is the game for you. I guess.
There's also its hugely popular online multiplayer mode, which really took the cake. Or the flag in this case. But most of all, Ratchet & Clank 3 just provides enough fun in its combined elements of gameplay with upgradable weapons, hilarious characters, and as always a tech-heavy environment. And to think, Ratchet only started out with a wrench. Super Mario Galaxy 2.
Wait, Galaxy 2? Surely the number one would be the first Mario Galaxy.
No, just look in the script.
Yeah, I know, I'm looking. All you wrote was number one, the better Mario Galaxy game. It doesn't even have any dialogue, it just says, listen to your heart, speak with your feelings.
Yeah, I meant all of that.
And in what universe is Super Mario Galaxy 2 better than the original? This is Mario Galaxy we're talking about. It's just the best.
Oh, you really think the original Galaxy is better than its glorious sequel, huh?
No, not really. It's more like I know the original Galaxy is better than its crummy sequel.
I think it's time to settle this in Smash.
I don't have Smash.
Fuck. Now I have to make a video.
Continue the adventure on Countdown Bleck's channel. Watch us debate which is the better game, Super Mario Galaxy or Super Mario Galaxy 2. Please click on it. Please do.